Today we're doing the book of 2 Timothy. It's an epistle. I missed something last week. We're in a new category of books. Of genres. I didn't. Pastoral epistles. Good job, Nate. First Timothy. First Timothy started off. This is why they're arranged this way. The Bible's not arranged chronologically; it's more arranged categorically, right? Yeah. So because that's a way to arrange things.
I would like
all the poetic books,
Bible. Raise
right?
For chronological Bibles, you can buy them. I think I need one.
So we have. So we usually like the historical books, right? And then, like in the Old Testament, the poetic books are all together, and then all the prophetic books are all together. Like the Gospels are all together, and then the historical books, right?
The Gospels together, actually.
And then, including Acts, those are just like the historical, descriptive books. And then we go into Paul's letters, right? And then we go into pastoral epistles. These are like pastor letters, like letters to more individuals that are pastoral in nature. They're shepherding, they're guiding an individual, not a whole church. Like Timothy. Timothy was a young leader. Paul was training him. What's the next book we're going to do next week? Titus. Titus is another church leader that Paul's discipling and raising. Philemon is another. He's not a church leader necessarily, but like he's instructing him. He's pastoring. Paul is pastoring that guy. So, author of 2 Timothy once again is Paul. It's a pastoral epistle. This is most likely, we don't know the exact dates of everything, but most likely Paul's last letter. So, another thing, it's not chronological, or else it would be like the second to last book, probably. I guess we're talking about Paul's lifetime, maybe not John's. So I don't know about 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. Anyway, this is Paul's last letter. It's also, they say, his most personal. Colton, I wish he was here. His favorite, he put it in his Instagram bio, one of the verses. Instagram bio.
Instagram Bible.
Do you remember what it was, Trevor?
Yeah.
It's from 2 Timothy. What is it?
Wait, it's from 2 Timothy?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't remember what it is, but it's just...
Can I go to his Instagram?
Bring me my coat. Right?
Is it like I've loved you as a son? Or
No, it's bring me my coat.
Oh, serious.
He thinks it's a funny verse. Like, why is this verse in the Bible? Bring me my coat. But this is also, they talk about the genre. This is why it's so important. Like, you don't just like read the Bible and do everything it says word for word. Bring me my coat. We got it. No one's bringing Paul his coat. Like, we need to... Church, why aren't you doing this? Obey the Bible. Bring him his coat.
4:13.
Yeah. So,
Is that the key verse?
this is also a very personal letter. So we read that and we understand, like, oh, this isn't instructive to us, right? This was a letter to Timothy first. That was instructions for who? Timothy needed to bring him his coat. You and I do not need to bring Paul his coat. It was cold. He forgot it. But so it's very personal, right? You can also see near the end, people's last words, super important, right? Like, I mean, sometimes. We like to think they're important. But like, if you only had one last thing to say, you'd think you'd pick the most important thing. Some people say random things as they're dying, so it's not always the case. But often people like say the most important thing.
You gain the wisdom over the years and perspective, and you say that pursuit wasn't worth it, and don't do what I did.
But anyway, this is the case of 2 Timothy. This is like kind of last words, so it's important.
All the words are important. Even the other books too.
Oh yes.
Like, have a little wine. Help your stomach.
Yep, also very personal. To Timothy. So, audience, directly to Timothy. Again, Timothy was a follower of Paul, a disciple. And where did Paul send Timothy to minister?
The Church of the Philippians?
No.
Galatia?
No, that's where he's from. He's from the Galatia region. No, he didn't send him to Corinth. Ephesus.
That was my next guess.
So Timothy is in Ephesus ministering to the church there. And so there's more instructions, like we read in the last one, of instructions for Timothy. Indirectly, right? So we have a direct audience, Timothy, and indirectly, because this is kind of a letter we've all learned. We've treated as an open letter, not just to Timothy, but that young leaders and the church can read and learn from. Written AD 66 or 67, which is from prison in Rome. So Paul again is in Rome, in prison, and apparently it's cold there because you need a coat.
Good things can happen in prison, guys.
Yeah. Once again, Paul expresses how much he wants to see Timothy, how much he wants to be with Timothy. He's telling Timothy to come, right, and bring his coat, and visit him. He wants to see Timothy really bad, but this letter would not exist if Paul could have seen Timothy in person, right? So we can thank God that there was a separation there, that he wrote something down rather than just saying it in person so that we could have it. That's how God used Paul's time in prison or his distance from churches that needed information, writing letters, which is a gift to the church that these things are written down. Main characters: Paul, of course, Timothy, of course. Also, Luke and Mark are mentioned. So, cool thing, Luke is with Paul in Rome. This is
Luke?
Dr. Luke, the guy who wrote the Luke and Acts. And the Gentile, right? Also, Mark is mentioned. He says that Mark is 4:11. Let's look at 4:11.
4:13.
Only Luke is with me, right? And so Luke is with him. Get Mark and bring him with you because he is helpful to me in my history. All right, what do we know? What do we know about Mark and Paul's relationship? Remember back in Acts?
Well, this is John Mark. No?
Paul was
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, Paul was upset with Mark because Mark was on the first journey with him and Barnabas and Mark. And what did Mark do? He left. He went back to home, Jerusalem, I think, or Antioch. He went back and left, skipped off on the second half of the trip. It's like we were on a mission trip in Mexico and somebody just went home. He's like, I'm bored. I don't know what his problem was. Maybe he had a family situation, but Paul was upset with it. And Barnabas on the second missionary journey was like, hey, let's bring Mark again. And Paul's like, heck no, that guy ditched us. What did that create? A rift between Paul and Barnabas, which they seem to have repaired, and now repaired with Mark, which is cool, because what does he even said, he affirms Mark really good here. Why? What does it say?
He's going to be helpful in
He's
my ministry.
helpful to me in my ministry. So Paul... Useful, right? So this opinion that Paul used to have of Mark has been changed, which is pretty cool. So we see that Mark has redeemed himself in the eyes of Paul. But we also saw that split Barnabas and Paul. And then Paul took Silas and Barnabas took Mark, and they went different directions planting churches, which doubled the ministry. So even through difficult things, God works and brings good.
Ashes brought up another character.
Tychicus?
Yeah.
What does it say about Tychicus?
I said them down.
It says Tychicus
Oh, yeah.
has been sent to Ephesus with Timothy.
Is Tychicus the slave that ran away? No, that's Onesimus.
No. All right.
Tychicus.
So I think Tychicus carried the letter. Oh no, maybe not. Oh, he carried a different letter. Tychicus carried the first Timothy, maybe.
All right. Well,
I remember writing
Anyway,
about the past.
I didn't write about him. Yeah, we talked about him. So this letter is once again a pastoral epistle. It has instructions on basically like how to counter some of the false teaching in the church, to counter some of the problems of the church. And basically to give some instruction, like further instruction on being a leader. There is some personal reflection. We kind of referenced it, but in 2 Timothy it refers to Timothy's mother and grandmother. In 1:5, I've been reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you also.
I'm now persuaded. It took a while, but I'm persuaded.
Well, yeah, so Timothy's got some sincere faith. Apparently, finally, this is later. No, I'm sure it was there evident before. But, and he's encouraging Timothy. God did not give you a spirit of timidity. Maybe Timothy was timidity. No. Timothy was timid, maybe a little bit, and Paul's encouraging him to be strong and have a spirit of power, of love, and self-discipline.
Yes.
Do not be ashamed to testify about our Lord, or ashamed of me as his prisoner. So some of the things going on, the Bible Project video talks about this, is Paul's reputation was not so great at this time. Because what was happening to Paul?
Persecution.
Well, specifically, where was Paul and why?
Prison.
Prison. So you think about like, hey, we got this great church leader. Oh wait, he's like locked up. So his effectiveness in ministry, he's not able to visit. And so people are false teachers, and maybe just some other people are like, is God really with that Paul guy? Like, why isn't God release him from prison? They're probably asking those kinds of questions. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? And they're like questioning, like, maybe is Paul really the right guy? Like, can we really trust him? So Paul's reputation is being affected. And so he's encouraging Timothy, like, don't be ashamed of me either. Why am I in prison? For Jesus. Because I'm suffering for Jesus. So yeah, don't be ashamed of me. We join with me in suffering for the gospel by the power of God, who has saved us and called us to a holy life, not because of anything we have done, but because of his own purpose and grace. So is Paul in prison for things he's done? Well, it's for God.
I wrote
It's
something
for the
down
sake of the
from
gospel.
first service from Delane today. It
Yeah.
basically said, following God always costs something.
Yeah.
Right? So it's costing Paul something right
Yes,
now.
costed Paul his freedom
A ton of stuff.
and eventually his life
But don't be fooled that you think following God doesn't cost. It doesn't.
and his coat.
Yeah.
Cost him his coat.
And the parchments.
Oh yeah, bring parchments too. Why do you think he wants parchments?
So you're
Get
right.
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To write more letters.
Write more letters. Okay. One of my favorite verses, I shared it from 2 Timothy, and when I did my testimony in middle school youth group this week, was 2 Timothy 2:2. And so Jacob and I have gone on on Wiley and Johnny just this year, and years ago Jacob and I went to this retreat called Transmit 222. And the key verse of Transmit 222 is 2 Timothy 2:2, which says, does someone want to read it for us?
I got you. So flee youthful passions and pursue
No.
righteousness. What? 2 Timothy 2. Oh, I'm 22. I said 22.
Yeah, sorry.
Too many twos.
Too many twos.
And what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses and trusted faithful men, who will also be able to teach others.
Yeah. So take what you've heard from me and teach it in the presence of many witnesses, and trust it to reliable men who will be able to teach it also. This is disciple making. You take what you've heard and you've learned, and you share it with others who will
2, 2, 2.
share it with others, right? This is the multiplication of disciple making and the replication.
It was like 2 Timothy 4:8 because then it does multiplying.
Oh,
4,
no, it'd
8?
be really great
I
if
know.
it
2, 4, 8.
No, it was 2 Timothy 22.
2 Timothy 2:4-8 is, now there is in store for me a crown of righteousness, which is the Lord, the righteous judge, which will award me on that day, not only to me, but to all who have been longing for
That's
his
what
appearing.
it equals.
2
Like-
4 equals 8.
It
I know.
results in a crown.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Great.
Cool.
Passing on the discipleship.
I also love the next few verses. I just love this book. Our guys' Bible study did 1 and 2 Timothy a few years ago.
Okay.
Just last year. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. He wants to please his commanding officer. Similarly, if anyone competes as an athlete, he doesn't receive a victor's crown unless he competes according to the rules. And the hardworking farmer should be the first to share the reward of the crops. So he compares the Christian life to 3 things, 3 jobs, occupations. What are they?
Athlete.
A soldier, an athlete, and a farmer. And says it's like that. Like a soldier obeys his commanding officer, right? Like we go where we're sent. We don't question. The athlete competes according to the rules, right? Otherwise they get disqualified. They do what's right, even if it's hard. It makes it harder, right? But they obey the rules. Like if you break the rules, like you don't win.
Georgia
So you have
just
to follow
told
the
me that
rules, right?
If she did her step after the line, it's a scratch.
Right, you step over the line, it's done,
It
right?
would make it easier if you stepped over the
Right.
line, right?
So you don't cheat, right? Like an athlete. And then the third, a farmer, like you plant seeds, right? Like we can't make people believe the gospel. We plant
and
seeds
they're growing.
and we wait for them to grow. We don't make them grow. We don't just like yell at the seed to grow. Like you just give it the right. I don't know if you tried
No,
it.
have you done that? This is an experiment. If you
Yelling?
yell at your plant versus you don't.
Okay, there's actually this is totally sidetracked. We have 3 minutes. So you know, have you ever heard like if you play classical music for your plants, they grow better? There's some science in that. The chirping birds actually affect plants to wake up and like pollinate and stuff. I don't know, science, biology.
It wakes up the bees. And
No,
then the pollinates
it
them.
literally affects the plants.
It does.
So it's the chirpingness of the classical music keeps the plants like awake and like in that mode of like wake up mode longer. It like stimulates
So
the
they
plants.
It's like
Sound waves are hitting them. They've been biologically conditioned by God to wake up with birds, and you're just like simulating bird
But then
noises.
there was a thing where like you had a plant experiment where they just yelled mean things at a plant.
And what did it do?
Like didn't do good.
It didn't do good.
No, I don't think so. I think this is real. I should probably Google it.
Well,
Yeah, do it.
you could get whatever result you want. You could like yell at it and then not water it, and then want the other way.
Well, the good scientist would have a control group.
One thing
Yeah,
that's
like
good.
the dude in that thing that we were researching, the Holocaust, that dude.
Holocaust? They had a control group?
Yes, they did.
So anyway, 2 Timothy is a really good book. It's personal. Paul cares deeply for Timothy, but it's nearing the end of the life. He starts talking about 4:6. This is kind of like some signs that like Paul is near the end. He kind of knows it. I am already being poured out like a drink offering. The time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which we got. So this is like sounding like somebody's last words, kind
Sounds
of,
like
right?
something that came out of a fantasy novel.
Well, it's in the Bible first. I'm poured out like a drink offering. I've fought the fight. I've kept the faith. Finished the race.
The
Boom.
plant, after 30 days, the plant that had bully remarks was drooping, and the other one that had happy things was thriving, and it was an experiment by IKEA.
Well,
So-
Paul was drooping because he was in a hard situation. He needs some encouragement. That's why he's asking for Timothy to come encourage him. Did Timothy ever make it with the coat?
No.
I don't know. How do we know?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Oh,
And the parchments. This is
I
his
don't know.
last letter,
So maybe
so
no.
he wanted parchments to write more letters, maybe, right? So maybe he didn't make it because he didn't write any more letters.
So there's some different questions on the timing, like maybe he got released a little bit and this is his second imprisonment in Rome. So there's some different thoughts on the history. I can't remember if the Bible Project talks about it or not. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know if Timothy arrived with a coat. So I'm sorry. I don't know.
We could say that he didn't because there is no more.
Timothy might never see Paul again.
Okay, that's possible. That's possible. He didn't make it. Maybe that's why there were letters.
See Paul again?
All right. They didn't know either if Timothy made it with the
Dragon, we should
coat.
watch Dragons in the Bible.
All right. Is Jesus in this book?
Yes.
How?
It talks about him in the images of suffering for Jesus. Like Jesus
It
himself.
talked about.
Why do we suffer?
For Jesus.
Verse
Jesus.
10, it says, chapter 2, verse 10 says, therefore I do everything for the sake of the elect, that they may also obtain salvation, that is in Jesus Christ with eternal glory, and then it goes like a little poem.
2:8. Remember Jesus Christ, raised from the dead, descended from David. This is my gospel.
Where does it say that?
2:8.
2:8? It's not, oh, that's
It's
what
not his gospel, it's God's.
This is my good news. Yeah, I guess it's God's, but it's the good news I want to share with you. This is my gospel for which I'm suffering, even to the point of being chained like a criminal. But God's word is not chained. It's all about Jesus. I think that's throughout this book. That it's all about him.
That's the timeless truth.
Here's a trustworthy saying. If we died with him, this is Jesus, we'll also live with him. If we endure, we'll also reign with him. If we disown him, he will disown us. If we are faithless, he will remain faithful, for he cannot disown himself. Whoa. It's all about Jesus, guys. He is the main character of the Bible. It's all about him. Key verse. I picked 2:15 which is
In a lot of verse.
Awana, literally the Awana verse.
Yeah.
Approved workmen are not ashamed.
Approved.
Awa,
Are
not
ashamed.
Awa,
Not, you should
Approved
need.
are-
Not need.
It's a D
Not-
now.
Are not.
It's
it's a different translation. Are not ashamed. Are not, it's just a
it
different
should be
translation.
Awada.
Awana. What translation is Awana from? Is it
There you
a
go.
approved workmen are not ashamed in
Boys
King
and
James?
girls for service.
Maybe
We're
it's
in
not from the
Jesus'
Bible,
service,
it's
man.
just
We're
like a
military.
paraphrase of
Or was it a paraphrase of it? Anyway, do your best to present yourselves as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. What is the word of truth?
You guys, you got this. What's the word of truth?
The gospel.
The Bible.
Sword.
The sword.
The sword.
They all wanted to say Jesus. That's how they
Like
call it.
Jesus.
That is Jesus is also the word, so that's true too. Read John 1.
Swan.
In the beginning was the word.
The word is with God, and the word was God.
So that's a great verse.
The word of God is alive and active. It is the sword.
Yes.
Sharper than
So do your best to present yourself as one approved. Who approved us?
Who gave us
Why
the
are we
stamp of
approved?
Because we can
Who?
Because we're covered in Jesus' blood.
Yeah, because of Jesus. Jesus approved us. We don't need like some council of high and mighty to tell us, all right, I guess this guy's okay. No, Jesus approves us. Do your best, present yourself. So you're presenting yourselves as approved. You're trusting in Jesus, approved by Jesus. A workman, a worker, not ashamed, right? Because like,
Who
Yes.
correctly handles the word of truth. Don't distort. Think about the people who are distorting stuff and
it happens
false
so
teaching.
often, people mess up the message and they put themselves in it. They put their own selfish desires in it. They put their own ideas in it. Don't add to the Bible. Timeless truth. Following
Jesus involves suffering.
Jesus involves.
Suffering and
Sacrifice.
persecution.
I took it from the video.
Oh.
Endurance.
What did it say? It used two words.
This one starts with an R.
Risk.
Oh, yours is a Saint. That's
Oh.
right.
And suffering.
T.
Oh,
And
It's all about Jesus. That's why it comes.
Tension.
tension. That's what the Bible Project had for like the main thought in the corner there. Following Jesus involves risk and tension. And I had, from the last time we did this, I still look at my notes from last time, but I kind of rewrite it every time. Actually, I just have the timeless truth. That's all I could find. I lost the other documents. Stay true to
Jesus.
Jesus.
Truth. God.
the Bible, the scriptures.
The word.
The word.
faith.
Sword.
I said faith.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Stay true to faith.
True to faith, guys.
So if we are faithless, he will remain faithful, even if we're faithful. But if we disown him, he will disown us. Whoa, there's an
That's something I
interesting
need to study, man.
Yeah.
Don't disown God.
For he cannot disown himself. So if you are part of, isn't that interesting? Like, if you disown Jesus, he will disown you. But he cannot disown himself. So if you become part of him, even if you become faithless,
It's saying that you
disown
can't
him.
lose your salvation, basically.
Yeah, but it almost sounds like you can. That's the tension there, right?
Well, you can reject without first believing, right?
Right. But can you disown?
Disown without believing.
That's the book of 2 Timothy. Thanks.